Talk about the third page of the review. It's asking for area. There are two different formulas you're going to use to find area. There is the original, base times height divided by 2, and then there's A times B sine C divided by 2. So there are two you should use here. Looking at this first one, it's a right angle, meaning you will be using base times height divided by 2. We have the base, but we do not have the height, so you are going to be responsible for finding that height. Because it's a right triangle, we're going to label our parts. We have 48, which is obviously an angle. We have 15, which is adjacent. And we have x, which is opposite. Now, we're going to set our problem up. Adjacent and opposite is tangent. So we have tangent of our angle, which was 48, equals opposite over adjacent. Now, anytime your variable's on top, you multiply. So you're going to multiply this side by 15. That's going to give you the value for x. Once you have that value for x, I'm not going to tell you what it is, you would do 15 times x divided by 2. That's the area. Base times height divided by 2. So looking at 13, same thing here. It's a right angle, so it's going to be base times height. Even though the triangle's upside down, it does not matter. This is still the base, and this is still the height. They didn't give us either. In this case, we're going to have to solve for both. So again, using trig, 62 is going to be our angle. Let's solve for x first. X would be adjacent. 19 is going to be the hypotenuse. That gives us adjacent hypotenuse, which is cosine. So cosine of 62 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. X is on top, so we'll multiply. 19 times cosine 62, and that's going to give you your value for x. Do the exact same thing to find y, except when you label your parts now, you have 62, which is still your angle. You have y, which is opposite, and you have 19, which is just your hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine, so you set this problem up, it would be sine of 62 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Y is on top, so you're going to multiply 19 times sine 62. That gives you y. You would do x times y divided by 2. Okay, here, this is not a right triangle. Therefore, you cannot use a squared or b a base times height divided by 2. You're going to use the second formula, which requires you to have a, which let's call it 12, doesn't matter, could have called it 16, times b times sine of your included answer. Type that into the calculator, hit enter, that's your answer. Round to 3 decimal places. Remember, this needs to be in units squared, so I'll finish this one just to show you. I'm not doing the rest of them. You have 12 times 16 times sine 48. You get 142.684, because of 3 rounds, centimeter squared. Do not put this square right here. If you put that square right there, what you're saying is your answer is 20,358, and it's not. Okay, let's look. I'm going to go to 16 next because it looks like 14. A triangle with 2 sides measuring 6 millimeters and 9 millimeters with the included angle of 71. We'll call this 6 millimeters, this 9 millimeters, and we have an included angle of 71. Not a right triangle, so again, we can't use the first formula. We're going to use A times B, 9 times 6, times sine of your included angle, which is 71. Put in the calculator, hit enter, and it will be millimeters squared. Okay, now 15. 15 is a little different because they gave you 3 sides and they gave you no angle. You can find the angle. You're going to have to find it. It doesn't matter which angle. I'll just solve for this one. You could have picked this angle. You could have picked that angle. Does not matter. To solve it, you're going to use the law of cosines because we don't have any angle on the side across. So the side that you're the side that you're sharing for would be this one. So it would be 11 squared. I don't have any room here. Okay. So in this case, it'll be 11 squared equals 6 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 6 times 8 cosine of an unknown. So you're going to do the math that you can do because some people are still struggling on this step. So I'll make sure to work this one out. You have 121 when you square 11. Then you do 6 squared plus 8 squared, which is 100, plus that 2, or I'm sorry, minus that 2 times 6 times 8. When you do 2 times 6 times 8, you get 96 of cosine of an unknown. And the first step is to subtract, so I'm going to subtract this 100 from that 121. When I do, I get 21. Negative 96 cosine of theta. I need to divide by this negative 96. So we have 21 divided by negative 96. When you do, you get negative 0.219 equals that cosine of your unknown. You're missing an angle, so you're going to do the cosine of the angle that you got, or the decimal you got there. When you do, you get that cosine is 103 degrees. Y'all have got to stop rounding to 102. That's 102.6, not 100, or so that round up to 103, not 102. That gives us this angle of 102 degrees. Now I can do my 6 times 8 times cosine, or times sine of 102 divided by 2. Remember, on all of these, you need to be dividing by 2 as your last step. Sorry, I didn't put that in there. Remember, divide by 2. Last step. A times B sine C divided by 2. And that answer is going to give you in feet squared. Please make sure you know when to use law of sines versus cosines. Angle and the side across is when you use sines. Right angle is when you use trig. Cosine is when you don't have an angle in the side across. Make sure your study guide, your note card is made. Your test is tomorrow morning.